Welcome to the Politics People. Joining us today is a journalist and author. As a broadcaster, she's one of the most familiar faces on UK TV. She describes herself as a lefty liberal, anti-racist, feminist Muslim. I'm talking to Yasmin Alibhai-Brown. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Hi.
Sorry, look, the conceit of this podcast is that writers and pundits and commentators have had more influence on politics in the last 10 years than elected politicians. Are you aware of any influence that you've had personally?
I'm not sure I have. I think that probably I would disagree with your premise. I think because of social media now, I think we commentators have less influence now than we did, say, when I started, which is quite a long time ago. Have I made a difference? I annoy a lot of politicians on all sides. Do they listen? Sometimes I think they do. Sometimes, although they'll never acknowledge it, something changes. But it is very important to me that a few of us, not all of us commentators, are outside the fold. We're not in the club. And in a democracy, that's very important.
No, absolutely. You're the first person to challenge the premise because I think somebody like you represents exactly what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is that the rise of populism as an actual political influence in the last decade or so. And, populism of the right and left. I mean, you've had, Farage,
Yeah.
you've had Brexit and Corbyn growing up. And those things were only possible because of a combination of social media and then people like yourselves being able to articulate very sort of specific arguments. So I'm surprised that because I think you've been very influential.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because my mom told me not to get ever to believe that you were bigger than you were. And I'm quite small, really. Um, what I think is important, though, is that there are a few of us who don't always take the party. Okay, I'll go back. I'm not loyal to anyone,
Exactly.
and that's a strength. But it's also deeply annoying to a lot of people. Like I've just tweeted, as before I came to talk to you, that I'm an Asian, meaning in our terms, somebody from of South Asian background, but I was actually born and raised in Africa. And in the last few days, after Black Lives Matter, there's been this kind of chorus of, oh, well, it's happening to us as well. And we now have a home secretary who's from the same place as I am, talking about being called names on the street. So I tweeted and I said, now is not the time, dear fellow Asians, to say we too and me too. Yeah? Black people in the West suffer more violent racism than any of us ever do. So what we should be saying is we're with you, brother and sister, right? All the way. I just tweeted that. I think it's just been retweeted about 700 times or gone, kind of caught a bit of a fire. That, of course, means that I get a lot of flack from fellow Asians today. Okay, where's your loyalty? I have no loyalties. I have no loyalties to my family. Half of them don't talk to me. Well, that's fine. I don't really miss them. So I've got this funny brain, which is so fiercely independent that loyalty feels a kind of oppression. So I'm not patriotic and I'm not loyal.
I think what you're referring to there was Priti Patel in the Commons yesterday challenging a Labour member of Parliament about whether or not she'd encountered racism, wasn't it? This was I think that's what you were referring to. So where does this start for you? What is the qualification, if you like, for a topic to be important to you or close to your heart? Is it largely in the racial arguments, or just any injustice that you see, regardless of any toes you might tread on, are you given to speak up on that?
Yes, it's the human rights template, human rights and equality, right? Which we'll never have in the world, as some of us would wish. So you use the same template for whether it's, your community, your family, your country, the West, the East, Muslims, I'm a Muslim, the same template. And that's actually the most honest way to make judgments. So I will always, always defend anyone, white, black, brown, poor, even rich sometimes, believe it or not, if I feel that they're being dehumanized, unfairly treated, but using the same template. And one of the things that worries me a lot about, I do not believe, well, no, I go stronger. I think one of the most dispiriting things that has happened in the last 10, 12 years is the emergence of identity politics. And it's tribalism of the modern kind. And all tribalisms are loathsome to me.
Gosh, that's so ironic, because so many of your critics would, I would say, accuse you of being partly responsible for the rise in identity politics, the culture of identity politics, and yet you totally disavow it.
No, because identity politics narrows your identity. Who am I? I've often said, tell me what identity I have ever claimed as a singular identity for myself. I'm an immigrant. I'm British. I'm Muslim. I'm feminist. I'm a Shia Muslim. I feel very African because I was born in Africa and my mother was born in Africa. I am internationalist. So which identity can you stick on me? Because you can't. And by identity politics, I mean precisely the kind of politics that you wear as a singular costume, and then you defend to death or defend to the exclusion of anything else. So people are always surprised. I didn't think you would think like this. I didn't think you would say that. How would you know what I would think and say? Because I'm not at all attached to any one identity.
Well, it's interesting actually, because this is all about for me political influencers, and the platform which you are best known for would be things like Question Time, Channel 4 News, etc. You often go in to be a pundit and a commentator, and I guess that kind of arena is quite combative and single issue by its very definition, of you're going in to either make, propose, or defend a position. And the plurality of your opinions, or the breadth of your actual point of view, can't come across there, because you're on to argue, binary single issues with somebody.
Well, I'm not sure you're right on that, because whenever I've been on any of these shows, again, you're not just asked one question. You are given time, and I answer things quite thoughtfully and with integrity. So, there are all sorts of issues on which I'm very, very strong at a time when it's not easy to be strong about those issues, like the way we treat immigrants in this country is something, and I'm not talking about any one group of immigrants. I care about Polish immigrants as much as I care about those Africans who come over in boats. I have no allegiances to one immigrant group or another. So on some, I'll be very, very forceful, because I think we do treat our immigrants very shabbily. And if you're of an immigrant heritage, which I am, and I get a lot of abuse about that, a lot, every minute of every day. Or if Britishness is claimed by nativists, I'll come out strong. But what nobody can ever pin on me, though they have tried, is that, I am a kind of zealot of one kind or another. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, is there any group that doesn't hate you? And I said, probably not. Probably not. And isn't that a good thing, actually, that there is a kind of spread? So a huge number of Muslims do not like at all who I am. Huge number of extreme Zionists think I'm real trouble. Some black people don't like me because they think I shouldn't be calling myself black, which I do. I use the political term black still about me. So, and some white people, quite a lot of white people, see a snippet or some of the social media stuff and, kind of go off on one about my being anti-white. I've been married to an Englishman for 30 years.
Well, nothing will
He's
make
my
you.
best friend, and my daughter is half English. My daughter-in-law is English. How on earth? And actually, the people I most trust in my life are white Britons. So, well, what can you do? We live in this kind of embattled world where you have to be boxed in, I suppose.
I'm going to stick up for myself. No, okay. The beginning of that was like that I was wrong, but no, I think that's exactly the point. Your argument is way more nuanced than your public image often, because your public image is governed by usually going into a TV arena to debate one binary topic, and I think that then defines your, because everything I'm finding researching this, finding your your TV appearances, etc. There are interviews where nuances can come across, but the majority of what you're, I think, best known for are these are basically going in and perhaps taking an unpopular, not towing the consensus line argument in TV debates.
Yes, but I never do it for its own sake.
No, sure, yes.
I never say anything I don't believe in. And I have changed my mind. I've often, and actually I wish more people read what I write,
Yeah, I read
because
you.
that's the real me.
I read you, and there is definitely. I can't say it's entirely different, but you certainly get the full picture with what you write. It's way more substantial, and again, I'll use the word again, nuanced, than perhaps the TV can
Yeah.
afford.
But it's also very important. One of the things is, we are living in a country, I feel, where the bad history is still very much with us. And they see this Asian woman who's meant to be, there's a kind of stereotype of us, isn't there? We are willing and charming and pretty and probably should be cooking them a nice curry, which I do cook, very nice curry.
Yeah.
Um,
There you go. You
but
see,
there's
you're
an
letting the
image.
side down. Yeah.
I know. And then so there is a problem that if I say something, I have a very good friend called Ian Dale, is a right-wing Brexiter, Tory,
I
and we're very close friends.
interviewed him last week. He was fantastic.
Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
He can't
if
make
he,
curry
he's
to save his life, so that's why he's a terrible curry maker. But we had him on anyway.
but anyway, if he says something, and we've often talked about it, we could both say, because he's very forceful, isn't he? But he's a
Yeah.
man and he's white. So if he says something and I say the same thing or almost the same thing, it's perfectly acceptable for him to say it. But it's completely out of order if I say it. So it sometimes is who is allowed to speak? When Michelle Obama said this week, they will always call you an angry black woman. Don't be afraid to be an angry black woman when you need to be. This was this week she said it. And the problem is, when you are an angry Asian woman, something really disturbs a lot of people, including among my own community. You're not supposed to be like this. You're not supposed to speak like this. So I think, I'm a very old woman now. I've been doing this a long time. I am very old. That even now, my legitimacy is questioned, not what I say, but my legitimacy as a democratic citizen and a journalist to say and write what I feel in good faith is questioned. And I find that interesting because when people say this is a really equal and tolerant country, I'm not the only one who will tell you this. Most people of color in this country, I have a lot of them in the world of journalism, are attacked for who they are, not what they say.
Yeah, in as much as the identity politics is present, whether you like it or not, basically, it's just like you're going to have it projected on you, whether you actually believed in it or not, or actually espoused it yourself. You touched on something just then. Have you reversed your feelings or opinions on any major topics throughout your
Yeah.
commentary life?
Well, one of the most important ones that I felt, um, well, I'll give you the funny one in a minute, for which I'm being pursued by hounds.
Really?
Yeah, I'll give you that one,
Yeah,
remind
yeah,
me of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the more serious one is this. A few years ago, I was I said something in a long column in one of the papers that I would not wear a poppy, and we were coming up to Poppy Day, and I said that the going to war the way this country and the West constantly does, creating new victims over and over again the world over. And so, what did it ever mean? Never again. But we do it all the time. And we don't even remember the people we're killing. So, I was feeling particularly strongly that year. And I wrote this column. And I had a response from some veterans, among them some Indians as well as white ex soldiers, who were incredibly upset with what I'd written. And we met up and I talked to them. And I felt very bad about what I'd written. And so the column I wrote after that, I said I was wrong. And they helped me understand what the poppy meant and why it was important and what I had done to their feelings. And so I did that. And I have done that some other times as well. But the one that I'm being punished for at the moment, and it was a stupid thing to do. About 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I never imagined Boris Johnson would ever be leader of the Tory party. I mean, such a useless, lying, untrustworthy, what can I say? So I wrote this flippant thing in a column saying, if he ever becomes the prime minister, I will leave this country,
Ah.
which was one of the stupidest things I've ever done. And so, ever since then, every minute of every day, are you still here? And they put the headline up and they put the column up. And I'd say, oh God, yeah, I changed my mind. But it doesn't really wash.
Well, you never said you were going to leave permanently. If it wasn't, if it wasn't the COVID at the moment, you could go to Spain for 2 weeks. So,
Oh, how wrong can you be?
oh, it's no, that's a brilliant one. But what was the first kind of subject? What was the first core celeb that thrust you into the media spotlight? To start going from just being a writer and journalist to being a face.
Well, I never was a journalist until the age of 37, and I'm
Really?
completely, yeah. I used to teach. I used to work in adult education. I always wanted to be a journalist from childhood, really. I wanted to be either an actress or a journalist. Um, but when you come to a country as an immigrant, journalism is a very closed off profession. It's nepotistic. You don't, you have to know people to get in. I knew nobody. And this went on till I was 37.
Wow.
And at the age of 37, I had glandular fever. And I got up one morning and I thought to myself, and I was off work. If you don't do this now, you will die full of regret. So I sat down and wrote a column, quite a quite a strong column, which was about how people weren't even bothering to pronounce my name properly. They didn't know anything about my history in Uganda, and that they, the British, the Americans, and Israelis, put Idi Amin into power, which led to my having to come to this country. I'm very pleased to be here. And something else. And I wrote this column. Now, I knew one journalist who used to come and speak to my students, who were mainly women who had no qualifications and were trying to uh, upgrade their skills to get some work.
Right.
And his name was Aidan White. He's now with the International Federation of Journalists, and he used to come and talk to they were mainly women students. So I rang him, and he was at the Guardian then. I said, would he look at this thing I'd just written? I couldn't even type. It took me forever. I was doing this. And so he looked at it, and he said, well, let's see. I think it's quite good. Let's send it off to the Guardian and see what they say. And they published it the following week.
Wow.
That's how I started. And then I did a couple more pieces for them. And then for a wonderful magazine we had called New Society magazine, which was a kind of political, cultural, and social issues magazine. Fantastic. It had run for a long time and then was swallowed up by the New Statesman. And I wrote a couple of pieces for them, and they gave me a job. That's how it started.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I had no idea that was the kickoff for you. That's extraordinary. It's interesting now, actually, if your ambitions were being an actress, a combination of either an actress or a journalist. It's like that is kind of where you've ended up. That is what
Yes.
being a TV commentator is, a combination of journalism and acting. It's extraordinary. So
Yes.
no, I had no idea. That's a really sweet story. So are you ever approached by editors or news shows to go in and challenge the consensus or to have a heated debate, but are just quite neutral about a topic? Have you ever just turned stuff down, kind of, I'm not really that bothered about it?
Yeah, no, I often say no. Often. I've said no to a lot of stuff in the last couple of weeks because what's with Black Lives Matter, I feel it's important for Black people to be talking. But also, there are some things I just am not interested in talking about. Some things don't catch fire with me, and more and more the writing seems to matter a lot more anyway, because I've written a lot of books. I'm just about to finish another one, and yeah, I think I'm kind of also out of date. There are so many young people coming up whose views and life experiences are more important than mine. But I often say no, and I often say no to commissions. A right-wing newspaper approached me last week and said, would I write a piece for them to say all the it's all very well, the Black Lives Matter, but they're being a bit naughty on the streets, and the violence is terrible. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that. And he gave me a figure, and he kept putting the amount of money up and up and up and up.
Wow.
Because he wanted me to be there doing this, and
Wow.
you,
Well, that sort of does give an indication of how all of this is kind of an extension of marketing or advertising. It's like this is how it's how public politics is part of a greater. Well, ultimately, people are selling soap. That's an almost a casting situation you're talking about there. It's like,
yes,
we want somebody of color to make this argument and cast that person in that role.
yes, and if it's a left wing, they love doing that. I mean, I sometimes do write for them, and they love saying this left wing person, look, she thinks this, but where it is what I think, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it isn't, however much money people give you, in the end, you have to live with yourself,
Mm.
And I'm incredibly careful not to be entrapped by anyone. So even when I'm doing TV, sometimes, like I do this, many of these, one of the daytime programs I do is with Jeremy Vine, which is a 2-hour program. And it's kind of popular, not populist, popular for the average audience. There's a bit of politics, culture, tittle tattle, all this.
Yeah.
And I'm often paired with some unspeakably right wing or macho men.
Right.
Um, and it can get very hot. And one of the things I've now decided, I mean, like they put me on with Nigel Farage for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Imagine that. How punishing was that? So
I,
I
I
made a decision.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of you both. I'm sorry. I'm totally
No,
Catholic
well,
on them.
no,
Anyway.
my Nigel Farage. Anyway, so I decided that what I wouldn't do is in the green room be like we often are, really friendly, because I detest him.
Right.
I detest everything he stands for. So I didn't speak to him. I was very polite on the program, but I did not speak to him in the green room. And it made him very uncomfortable, I have to say. Because one of the problems with Britain, and probably other places, is that there's this kind of comradeship between journalists and people in politics. And a lot of it is charades. They are acting. And I can't do that anymore. So wherever there are people whose views I feel, not just that I disagree with, like Ian Dale and I disagree about a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I really respect him because I feel he respects me and who I am and people like me. So now I don't do that. I don't play that game very, very much anymore. So, I'm very straight on the program. And sometimes it's quite interesting. There was a Tory female MP, and sometimes I've been very rude about them
I
in my
know.
columns,
I know.
and then it becomes really difficult. So, you know, um, she was just brutal with me. She was worse than I am with anyone before and after. So it's not easy, but I mean, honestly, how lucky have I been to be able to do this? You know,
Oh no, it's
I
exquisite. Are you aware of other people in your field who are prepared to be rent a quote and to lend their credibility to a heated debate? Are you aware of others who perhaps don't have the same integrity that you demonstrate?
Some of them have more integrity. The younger people, I'm in awe of them. I really am in awe of them. For example, over the last few months, young upcoming black journalists have refused to go on programs where they're going to be asked to explain racism over
Right.
and over again and then be questioned quite fiercely and sometimes rudely by those who say, how dare you, it's outrageous, how dare you, this is a tolerant country, go back to where you come. They made a decision. We're not doing this anymore. I never made that decision when I was emerging and trying to make a career, So some of them have more integrity. Some of them, and I completely understand, because there are so few Black or Asian journalists in any positions of influence in this country. There's a long way to go. More of us around, more fantastic journalists around, but really not enough, and certainly not in enormously powerful positions, except at The Guardian. I'm trying to think where else.
Vogue.
You- hmm?
Vogue.
Vogue, yes,
That's about it.
Vogue.
Editor of
Um,
Vogue and a couple of people on the Guardian. That's about it. Yeah.
but I mean, at the top, who are actually able, who are at that level where they can determine policy and really pull the strings. So, and then there's a third level of journalists who really should know better because they're allowing themselves to be used. And I also am a professor of journalism, part-time professor of journalism at Middlesex University. And one of the things I teach my uh, third year students is be extremely careful when the media comes calling and asks you to do something for which they have an agenda which you don't know what it is, you know. So I teach them to ask some questions, because it's very easy to be pulled into some of this.
Have you ever been ambushed? Does that come from experience? Has there ever been
Yeah.
something that you really regret?
Once or twice, and you get so flattered that you're being asked, and then you see the headline. You always know what's happened, and you see the headline, and you live and learn. Actually,
Isn't there's some story about, isn't there, like a cardinal arriving in Las Vegas being asked as he got off the plane, he said, are you here to see the dancing girls in Las Vegas? And the cardinal, there's apparently a true story, and the cardinal came down to the journalist and said, are there any dancing girls in Las Vegas? Trying to be really cute. And then the headline was, first question off plane from cardinal was, are there any dancing girls in Las Vegas?
I didn't know that
Yeah,
story.
it's no,
Yes.
there's kind of great little. You've got to know what medium you're going to be presented on. Are you? I said you get you, just a cursory search of you on YouTube. Yes, all the Jeremy Vine and the Matthew Wright shows before him on the Wright stuff, I think it was called originally. And you are there not towing the line and giving as good as you get. Do your feelings ever get hurt? Because people seem to
Yeah.
have. Yeah, well,
Yeah. Of
expand.
course. The poor man I live with has to deal with my tears. They're never going to see me out there crying because they've been doing what they do. But this poor chap who's lovely, that I live with and have lived with for so long, sometimes the family really worries, actually, because I get very serious death threats too. And I've had to have police protection, um, and all that. So yes, I'm not. I'm quite an emotional person anyway. I think and I feel whatever I do in my articles is always a combination of the two. So yes, of course it hurts, and you wonder what it'll take, for people to accept you as a person who belongs to this country. The thing they want to tell me, the thing that hurts most, I suppose, is, F off where you came from.
Right.
This is not your country. That one really hurts, because I've never had anything other than a British passport. And, all of us, we never wanted this country to come to our countries. Okay, you did what you did. And now you're sort of like abandoning us, like forgetting we are your children. So that, yeah, but I've written very, very interesting books about all that. And I get into trouble about that too. There's one book that I wrote a few years ago, 10 years ago, I think. And it's called Who Do We Think We Are? It was published in America as well. And it was looking at the British nation and the mirrors it looks through to understand itself and how distorted they are. And on the cover, we put the Queen, the postage stamp image of the Queen, but we kind of made a little bit Aboriginal. And that, my God, the Telegraph had a whole front page, enemy of the people, public enemy number one, blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't, and I'll tell you one thing, for some reason, they gave me an MBE in journalism, an honor, which I then returned.
I was just about to
When we
ask you
went,
about that. I was just about to
yeah,
ask you, yeah.
but when the Queen gave me this thing, before she gave me this bauble, her press person rang me and said, "Is this a book about republicanism? Republicanism in Britain meaning get rid of the monarchy?" And I said, no, it wasn't about republicanism. Um, so yeah, there have been very interesting moments.
And what prompted you to? Because you went through the MBE ceremony, you got you actually went to the palace and got
Yeah, that was
the.
another stupid decision I made.
Well, you don't be so hard
Another
on
very bad.
yourself. It's a totally understandable one. I'm not.
No, no, no,
To be fair,
no,
I'm
no,
not sure I'd pay for a
no.
taxi
That
for an
was a big
MBE.
mistake.
That.
That was a big mistake. That was a big mistake. And I'm an anti-royalist. B, the word empire turns my stomach that we're still using it. C, I don't think the system is totally corrupt. And I'm not the only one saying it. Lots of people know it to be true. So it was the wrong thing to do for me and for them. It was unfair to take it, unfair to those who believe in the system. When I was on television, we have a wonderful poet called Benjamin Zephaniah. He's a British Rastafarian poet. And we were on Channel 4 News, and he said to me, "What are you doing with this MBE? Why have you even got it?" And and on TV, I said, "Yeah, you're right."
Because he won't even accept. I mean, he's never gone through it at all.
He's never accepted it.
He's told them he doesn't want the OBE,
which is
isn't
a truly honourable thing to do.
Yeah.
Mine was not a very honourable thing to do.
Well, again, I think you're being really hard on yourself. I mean, it took the Vietnam War for the Beatles to give theirs back. You know what I mean? It's and to be honest, if I was your agent, I wouldn't have accepted the M for you. You're an O. You've got to be an O. If you're going to turn anything down, turn the O down. You can't get an MBE. MBE is for car park attendance, isn't it?
No, they gave me the lowest of the low, thank God.
Yeah, I was going to say
Still very pretty.
The next one below is a postal order. That's the.
They knew I didn't deserve it.
Exactly. Anyway. It costs you more to mail it back. But no, it's so. What's the next? What's next in line for you? What are you up to next?
So I'm writing a column every week for the I newspaper. I did one today, which is on these scientists who are turning up with the government week after week, defending their appalling, shambolic policies on corona. We have the worst government, bar the United States, on all of this. And why are they doing this? Why are they becoming patsies for the government, right? Absolutely shocking to see them compromising themselves and their science. And they will probably end up in the House of Lords, trust me, because they will end up in the House of Lords. So that's today's column. So I do one every week. I also do quite a sweet thing in the Sunday Times magazine now, very different from anything else I do, called Reasons to be Cheerful. And I bring these lovely, uplifting stories, which Sunday Times readers know nothing about. So the one that I had this Sunday was how British Muslims have taken to eating their own full English breakfasts. And so there's a beef bacon and beef sausage industry worth zillions of pounds now. And especially over Ramadan, the morning breakfast is now a full English. So you see, I bring those stories, and it's great fun to do those, really.
Oh my God!
I'm finishing a book as well.
You're the Esther Ranson. You've become the That's Life of the radical left.
No, but these are quite important stories because, you know, they connect us.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of ways in which we are a very contented, and actually, when it comes to the personal level, Britain, intercultural, interfaith, interracial relationships, friendships, and love and sex are wonderful here. Absolutely wonderful. It's the bigger picture that's so difficult. So I do that, and I'm just finishing a book called Ladies Who Punch.
Oh, I like that.
Yes. And I'm finishing that this weekend. And yeah.
Well, beautiful. Listen, I really have enjoyed talking to you. I can't thank you enough for your time today. It's been a real education, a real eye-opener. Thank you so much. Yasmin Alibhai-Brown, thank you so much for being on.
Well, good to talk to you. Thank you. Bye.